Our guest today, Stuart Faught, has built and sold 19 SaaS businesses. He's the number one seller on acquire.com. You go from nothing to literally like you sold a business for $500,000 in 3 months, less than 6 months, which is crazy.
Andrew's content was kind of magic to my ears. Around a month or so, was able to go in and get 100K in ARR and ended up selling that business in cash for 500K. The whole project
That's
probably
awesome.
took like 90 days. And so, I kind of had a light bulb moment. Like, I wonder if I could do that again. I'm thinking about the acquisition from day one. I'm super, straightforward with the buyer. My advice for a seller: be easy to be approachable, be cool to work with, be professional.
So how long does due diligence usually take you?
It really depends on the buyer. And so I explain that to my buyer. Hey, this is a simple deal. What do you want to see? And I'll let them come at me with questions. I'll give them everything they need. Usually they've already seen everything that is on that, that checklist once we are in the LOI stage and that due diligence stage.
I hope every seller watching is honestly taking notes.
I'm pretty bullish on Micro-SaaS, man.
So today's episode of Inside Micro PE is going to be a masterclass on building, scaling, and exiting small SaaS businesses without venture capital, without hype, and without burning out. Our guest today, Stuart Faught, has built and sold 19 SaaS businesses. He's the number one seller on acquire.com. He's built these businesses in niches like dentists and home services, which I find extremely interesting and not what you usually hear about. So yeah, Inside Micro PE isn't a podcast about unicorns or fundraising decks. It's about repeatable systems, clean exits, and building businesses that real cash buyers actually want to acquire. I've always been a bit of like a acquire.com fanboy. So yeah, it's really awesome to do an episode, with somebody who's the number one seller on there.
Dev, appreciate you, man. Thanks for having me on your podcast. I'm stoked to talk with you and see where the convo takes us.
Awesome. Thank you for being here, man. I appreciate you taking the
Yeah.
time. So I wanted to really start, I think really at the start of your journey, you were initially in a corporate sales role before you transitioned into kind of building your own businesses.
Yeah, I'm kind of one of the typical entrepreneurs. Always, was entrepreneurial as a kid. Had a little, hustle as a car detailer during the summers, and did my little businesses, and then yeah. Fast forward, graduated college. I was told that the path was to go get a job at a good company, a big company, and so did that. Found myself like in the cubicle, and I was like, I cannot do this. I cannot do this. Was there for not long. I was there for a year or two. At the time, I was working for a dental software company, one of kind of the main players in the space.
Hmm.
And I thought to
Hmm.
myself, I like this niche dentistry. I think there's a lot of opportunity to innovate here, but I just need to find a product. And so heard about SEO on my off days, literally just went out and found customers for that SEO business. And then as soon as I had a handful of
Yeah.
customers, was able to quit the 9 to 5 and never went back to corporate since. I've always kind of just done my own thing, thankfully.
It's really interesting to see you go from running an SEO agency to building these micro SaaS businesses and then selling them. So I'm curious what that transition looked like for you, going from a business owner running an agency to then building a software business, which are very, very different skill sets.
Yeah, yeah. So for me, how it kind of worked out was, started my little SEO agency. Um, went out, I signed up a couple of hundred dental practices. So really kind of focused on dentistry. And I thought, wow, this is great. Signed up a couple hundred practices. Each one I was charging, $300 a month. And I was still,
Yeah.
single guy living in college town. And I thought, wow, this is great. But from that experience, I realized really what these dental practices need is just a simple way to capture an online review from a patient. And so So this was kind of
Mm.
before other reputation companies had formed. So from that experience, I kind of saw an opportunity to differentiate myself from just another SEO agency to, hey, let's pivot and let's just focus on helping dental practices get reviews. And that was the best kind of pivot transition that I possibly could have done. And then from that experience, over the next handful of years, I always was bootstrapped. Honestly, I didn't know about venture. I didn't know about getting investors. All I knew was I wanted to make money and I had an opportunity to do it. And so me and super small team, we're talking me and maybe one or two virtual assistants and then part-time, sales guy kind of helping me out. Over the next handful of
Mm-hmm.
years, went out and signed up a couple of thousand dental practices. But through that experience, really kind of, focused on dentistry, but, started working and was able to, sign up all kinds of customers, all types of local businesses, anyone from a flower shop to Ferrari dealerships and everyone in between. And, just kind of
Yeah.
grinded that out. Like, um, had no idea what I was doing, but just kind of was learning as I went, and ended up being a great business. Again, self-funded. Fast forward to around 2017, 2018, found myself like pretty burnt out, candidly, and so I thought to myself
Mm.
like, man, if I can get an opportunity to sell this, that would be fantastic. And had no idea how acquisition worked or any of those things. Acquire wasn't around back then, unfortunately. But
Yeah.
was able to connect with a venture backed company that pretty quickly acquired us, and
Nice.
that was a positive experience, kind of a nice checkpoint, and was able to kind of take a deep breath and took a couple of years off. I've got four kids, and
Mm-hmm.
this was kind of during the COVID area as well, so it was a good time to kind of chill. Um, and then uh, as I was thinking about, hey, what's the next thing? What's the next thing I should do? My non-compete was up as far as, being in the reputation space. And I thought, okay, what's the next thing for me? Started seeing this guy, Andrew Gazdecki, all over LinkedIn. And Andrew was talking about like, hey, like, acquisitions and it's hard and all the pains that I had previously gone through, finding a buyer for my previous business and going through that initial acquisition, dealing with the board and getting approvals and the CRO to the CEO, and it was kind of a gauntlet. And Andrew's content was kind of
Yeah,
magic.
it really is.
Yeah, Andrew's content was kind of magic to my ears because I had gone through that kind of tedious
Mm.
process. So I thought to myself, I was like, if I see Andrew post one more thing, I might have to like just build one of these things just as an experiment to see if I can, how that, because he's making it sound awesome. And,
Yeah, yeah,
his content marketing was really getting me.
it
And so,
is.
anyways, I thought to myself, man, this is what I know how to do. Like, I had no idea that these smaller SaaS companies were in such demand. And so, as an experiment, I thought, cool, let's create another reputation SaaS. I know how to do that. I've done that for 10 years prior. Let's do it again.
Mm.
With all my same playbooks and everything that had worked previously, went out and during of around a month or so was able to go and get 100K in ARR, and then
Dumb.
basically listed the business and talked to a handful of buyers and ended up meeting a great buyer, qualified, easy to work with, and ended up selling that business in cash for 500K. And again, this was like the whole project
That's
probably
awesome.
took like 90 days. And so, I kind of had
Yeah.
a light bulb moment, like, I wonder if I could do that again. And so kind of the same
Mm.
playbook. Um, again, just following all my same, strategies that have worked in the past, went ahead and did it again. And then I did it again and did it again and just continued to do that. And yeah, it's just been a really fun experience. And I just have found that I really enjoy like the early stage SaaS stuff. So I
Yeah.
always say my kind of fun zone is, you know, 0 to first million in ARR. That's what I am super comfortable with, and I really like it. After talking with a bunch of people, it turns out I'm kind of weird that way. Most people don't like that stage. So anyways, that's kind of how that ended up happening.
That's really interesting. I really think that 0 to 1 stage is, and that's what, like, there's so much value you're adding there. Like, you go from nothing to literally, like you sold a business for 500,000 in what, like 3 months, less than 6 months, which is crazy. Like, many people aren't able to be that productive over 3 years. So I'd
Yeah.
love to understand from you, like, how you approach, like finding the problem to actually then like having the business set up and then getting the first customers, and I feel like you've done a great job of condensing that playbook, to be able to do it very quickly.
Yeah. So I kind of attribute it to my experience with my first business. So again, I worked with all kinds
Hmm.
of local businesses. And so I literally have
Hmm.
experience
Hmm.
working with almost every type of local businesses, helping them get reviews.
That's
And so
interesting. Yeah.
so I just have a great understanding of how local marketing works and the different tools that, are useful for these types of businesses. I always
Yeah. Yeah.
The way that I look at it is local businesses, there's endless amounts. They need marketing, and I know how to, kind of put these tools together. I've got a great development team behind me that can create these products, and I've got a great design team that can do it. And the way that I look at it is I think about a vertical I want to serve and a couple of tools that can, really help their businesses out. And then I like to create, small verticalized SaaS businesses talking directly to those customers. And I've found that it's really fun because all of my big competitors, they're going after those bigger enterprise markets, whatever they're doing.
I'd love to understand better, how you actually get those customers for all of the businesses.
Yeah, yeah. So I think that's probably definitely like one of my strengths and my secret sauce. It's the willingness and the ability to sell. I think that's like a super underrated skill for all new founders. It's you got to know how to sell, and you have to be willing to put yourself out there and go and sell. And so the way that the way it's gone down for me, in the early days, man, I just really grinded, and basically it wasn't the most scalable thing in the world, but it consistently worked
Yeah.
over a long period of time. So the way that I did it, people kind of trip out on this. um, I had a routine where basically every single day I would go and visit 15 dental offices, and I would refer to
Wow.
this as my 15-5-1. So I would go to 15
Hmm.
dental offices. I typically would break through and talk to 5 decision makers, and then I would go home with one contract later that day. Each of my customers, I've
Hmm.
always kind of really just liked the price point of $250 a month. Um,
Hmm.
but
Hmm.
but
Hmm.
yeah, it kind of became a game. And anyone that has done cold selling to dental practices, it's actually very, very difficult. It's kind of crazy
Interesting.
to get past, you go in the office and it's like kind of this scary, office lady named Pam or Barb. I don't know why, but every time it's either Pam or Barb. And anyways, it's like their job's to totally block you and get you out of there. And so I came up with a little routine, again, just doing it so many times, 15 offices a day, where I would
Hmm.
go
Hmm.
in and it was kind of the same thing every single time. It wasn't, hey, I'm Stuart, I'm selling this thing, this is what I'm doing, it was, hey, was just looking to drop a card with the office manager if he or she's in. Oh, she's in the back. I'll take it. Cool. I'll leave it with you. Here you go.
Hmm.
And also was just looking to drop some treats with the office. Curious how many people were working, so I knew how much to bring in. And they would look at me and kind of be diffused at that point because it's like, okay, he just wants to drop stuff.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And that's kind of cool. Okay, there's one, two, three, four, five, five. Cool. Would it be six with the doctor? In other words, is the boss person here that I need to talk to, or should I go to the next office? And it's
Yeah.
like, yeah, it's six with the doctor. Cool. I would literally go out to my trunk, pop my trunk, get a little carton. I would put my six donuts in. I'd go back in. Here you go. And I wouldn't say anything. I'd wait for them to respond. And they usually at that point were kind of like, oh, thanks. So what is name of my business? Oh, we help, dental practices do X. Also was just, hoping to introduce myself to the doctor. Is it cool if I just hang out, catch him between patients?
Hmm.
And I found if I go through the process kind of that way, it was like, crap, this guy's cool. Yep, just hang out. He'll be out in 5 minutes. And then when the doctor did come out,
Yeah.
it's kind of
Yeah.
like, hey, cut the crap, be really respectful of his time, and hey, I'm Stuart. Here's what I'm doing. Has that been on your radar? Is this a need? And I'm kind of just metaphorically flipping over rocks. And many times it was like, oh yeah, I've been looking to do that thing. Yeah, come on back. And then yeah, I knew like, okay, this is great. Boom. Or it's like, yeah, go ahead and set something up with Barb and, swing on back. Like, yeah, thank you. Or it was like, hey, no, I'm good. Cool. I'd go to the next office. And so that was kind of my main um, channel, which is just kind of
Hmm.
crazy. And, the
Hmm.
last, X amount of years, I've been building partnerships and have gotten really efficient at building partnerships.
Yeah.
And so
Yeah.
nowadays,
Yeah.
I have a new business I want to do. Great. It's in a new niche. Awesome. I look at the niche, do I like this niche? Can I deal with these people? Do I want to work with them? Are they willing to pay me, what I'm hoping to charge? All those good things.
Yeah.
It's like I would much rather, be warm selling to referrals that come through trusted partners
100%. Yeah.
than pounding the pavement like I have. It's just kind of a night and day way to sell.
No, I really love that approach. I'm curious, like with these partners, are you usually giving them like a cut of the revenue, or like yeah, how are you incentivizing them?
Yeah, good question. So I always like to offer a 20% first year rev share. So I've had
Hmm.
experiences in the past where I've done a rev share deal with a partner and you blink and it's like, I'm paying this guy, I'm continuing to pay this guy for like 5 years. And it's a good problem to have because that means the customer is with me for a long period of time. But from that
True,
experience,
true.
I've learned like just cap it at 12 months, 20% rev share.
Now you're at the point in which you're, building things that distribution channels that are working beyond just the hours that you're putting in. And I do think that is really the secret to unlocking like the business at the scale at which you have been doing these businesses so far. So, I'd love to understand from you, like, what is your reasoning behind like, taking the business to that 50K ARR kind of sweet spot and then selling it? Why not go beyond that? And yeah, why not, try to aim for something? Hey, can I get this to 500K, or do you think there are certain limits to the strategies you're using? Or yeah, I'd love to understand how you think about that.
Yeah. So the way that I look at, building and selling a business is I really have, just like if you're selling a tool or a product, you really got to have your
Hmm.
customer in mind. And so for
Yep.
me, and you ought to work with, and target a customer that you really like to work with and you like to spend time with them. And, being on calls with them, isn't a burden. You like this niche of people. And so for me, it's first time founders. I just really relate to first time founders. Just looking back on all those years where I was trying to figure it out, and I wish there was a guy like me with handfuls of experiences and learnings that could just help me
Hmm.
accelerate my entrepreneurial journey. And so I always, every time I build a business, I've got that first time founder in mind. I'm building it for him or her. And so I've just found to answer your question, why 50K, why 100K ARR? Feedback from my buyers has been like, yeah, I just want like a little. a little revenue where I can continue to
Yeah.
work, and it brings me an extra 50K a year
Mm.
to basically cover expenses and put some cash in my pocket. Or hey, I'm looking to quit my job and I need a year, and so if I can have 100K in customers from this business I'm acquiring, then I could quit my job and I could go all in and I could build it from there. And so yeah, it's really just with my buyer in mind. That's the price point that they resonate with and they're interested in.
Interesting. And how do you approach building such sellable assets? Usually thinking about the buyer before you build it, or like, in the early stages, or is it usually about the product and then, that exit readiness comes later on?
Yeah, I'm in such a different game, this micro SaaS building
Mm.
and selling. Really, I'm thinking about the acquisition from day one, you know. And
Yeah.
so I'm building it to pass a code review. The product
Hmm.
has to be solid. I know there's going to be someone on the buyer's team that's going to look under the hood. It's got to be legit. It's got to be
Yeah.
solid. All of the branding, all of the marketing has to be top notch.
But so you said something there that I really like, which is like, you're building everything that you know that they'll need, right? So is that like a checklist that you're usually using, or how do you go about, how do you figure out what they need?
Yeah, it is. Yeah. So it's a total checklist. So I know that they need some lead magnets. I know that they need a
Hmm.
brand guide. They want to have a proper brand. I know that they need a designer on hand. And so at the point of acquisition, it's like, hey, here's my designer and my design team. You've got access to them, you know, as you go and you change, and
Yeah,
they'll always
yeah.
be by your side. Hey, you need a developer. I've got this great developer. Every Bootstrap SaaS guy knows that's non-technical, which is me. I'm like super not technical. And so I rely on these guys. It's super difficult, I've found, and I've heard many others have had the same experience, to find a competent dev team
Hmm.
that's an outside party that
Yeah,
can actually
yeah,
create a product that you
yeah.
can sell and then eventually have acquired. That's very difficult. And so I'm able to add
Hmm.
that value to a first time founder. Attorneys, I've worked with lots of attorneys, I've vetted lots of attorneys, and I have an amazing
Hmm.
SaaS venture specific attorney. I learned the hard way that
Hmm.
if you're putting your will and trust together, you don't go to a divorce attorney to do it. If you're looking to raise capital for a SaaS business, you don't go to a will and trust guy, you go to a venture guy. And so at the point
Yeah.
of acquisition, I'm able to pass on those contacts. But everything that they would need, from hey, here's how you sell it, here's my process lined up. You just got to implement
Hmm.
and do the hard work to sell. But here's my system. And so all those different things I include with these businesses. And I just think that's the best way that I can add value is helping these first time founders with their first acquisition. And so that's been really fun.
Awesome. No, that's interesting. And I love how like I do think for a lot of buyers it really comes down to like, okay, I can buy the business, but then what? Right? And they usually have different commitments themselves, right? It's not like somebody that's spending a couple $100,000 to buy a business is not doing anything else, right? So they do need these developer to maintain it, marketing people, people that they can call upon, right? To solve whatever problems that may come up. So
Totally.
I do think that like that's a pretty solid checklist, for anybody that's thinking of exiting or building something to exit. If I'm not wrong, your average time, like, listed on Acquire per deal is about 30 to 45 days.
That's right. Yeah. So my experience
That's
on it.
amazing.
Yeah.
That's really amazing. Like that's a really short time because yeah, it's not always easy getting buyers to like pull the trigger, you know. Yeah, I'd
Yeah.
love to hear how you think about that.
Yeah. I mean, big shout out to Andrew and the team at Acquire. They've built an amazing platform. And so yeah, from my experience, it's typically, within 30 to 45 days. Um,
Hmm.
and basically I'll list it. and I'll be really on top of it. I mean, it takes a ton of work, but I'm really on top of every lead. I take every single lead that comes through very seriously. I try to communicate with them. I try to schedule that, intro call. And I
Yeah.
found that if someone is, on the other line and, you know, you know, requests
Hmm.
access to the business, but they're not willing to get on an intro call, it's not a good lead. That
Yeah.
deal is not
Yeah.
going anywhere. And so
Yeah. Yeah.
I
Yeah.
kind of have my ways of like qualifying my buyers, and the
Hmm.
people that are willing to do the intro call. I do my best to, hey, is this, I think to myself first, is this my ideal buyer for this business? And I think I focus on my ideal buyers. All the other guys, it's just noise. And so I think that's what has helped me, you know, uh, be able to sell these businesses in short periods of time.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. I'm curious, like, so generally, just so that the audience has some context, when you list your business on Acquire, you're probably getting close to like, I don't know, 30 messages, maybe more than that within the first 2, 3 days itself. And, subsequently, you're trying to meet all of them, trying to explain to each of them what about your business. I'd love to understand like how you approach these conversations with the buyers, how do you maybe like are you like very upfront, this is my valuation, this is what I want to sell for, this is what the business looks like, or do you take a more tactical approach, in terms of like deciding that valuation?
Yeah, I'm super, straightforward with the buyer, and I just kind of put it all out there. I put it
Nice. I
all
love
out
it.
there. I've got a data room where I give them immediate access because I want them to see all the stuff that I can offer them. And so I get them in the data room, I get them on an intro call. I'm super upfront with them. I tell them my model, I tell them what I do.
I think it really helps establish that trust right from the start. Like, I feel like you're starting with trusting the buyer, which honestly, I would love to clip this and like send this to every seller we've worked with because many of them are so caged and like, I don't know what they think, what's wrong gonna happen, if they just like, are upfront about what the business is, what it looks like, what the problems
Mhm.
are. Because when the buyer sees you being transparent, it completely changes the way they approach the conversation and that business, right? They're not trying to
Yeah.
find the negatives. You're laying it out in front of them, right? So they're able to evaluate it well. And obviously, it just sets up a great relationship with this, which is always super important for the right buyers. I love to understand, like, do you often have competing offers on the deals that you're looking to sell, or do you just sort of find one buyer, and then just
Mhm.
negotiate with them and get the deal done?
Yeah, I mean, there has definitely been time periods where, there's been several buyers going for these businesses, which is always awesome. I love to be in that position, of course. And I like to, I same thing with someone looking to acquire the company. They're probably looking for someone that's cool to work with and easy to do a deal with. And so as a seller, I'm the same way. So if I've got 3 to 5 people looking at a deal, I'll just, naturally know, like, I want to work with Dev. Like, this guy's cool. Like, we've had good conversations. He's respectful. He does what he says he's going to do. And so, from a buyer's perspective, I've been kind of surprised at how many buyers are kind of rude. They think they're special or
Oh,
awesome, or there's a lot of people in that space, or in our space that it's kind of like that, unfortunately. And so yeah, it's very easy. If I do have a deal that I've got multiple offers on, I pick the person that I feel like is going to be the best to work with. Even if they come in a little bit less on cash, it's still worth it to me.
definitely. That makes sense. I'm curious, what are the usual deal structure that you're working with? Are they like, pretty similar, or do you get different deal structures on different deals?
Yeah, pretty similar. So I always, in my mind, I'm flexible, but I always try to, be reasonable and get the value that I think it's honestly worth and that I can get. So whenever I go to market, I've always got, 5x multiple on revenue, right? So if it's a if it's a 50K ARR business, I look at that as a 250K asset. All of my deals come with customers that are on a 12-month agreement. And so I always transfer
Yeah.
over
Yeah.
customers that are solid for at least a year,
Hmm.
just so I can
Yeah,
give
that's
my
true.
my buyer a good experience. And so as far as churn goes, I can say, hey, these are solid customers. In fact, I'll
That's a
guarantee
massive, yeah.
that they'll be around for a year, and now it's just up to you to give them good service and take care of them so they'll hopefully renew for you
Hmm.
down the line.
Yeah, no, I think the 12-month contracts I feel is huge because that takes
Yeah.
a lot of the uncertainty, the risk, especially initially in the business. They don't necessarily need to hit the ground running, they can figure out the ropes, while obviously continuing to serve those customers. And once they get their bearings, then they can look at growing it beyond that. I love that. I'm curious, are
Yeah.
there anything that you see common, because you've sold like 19 businesses now. So I'm sure there's some commonalities, between the buyers, either profession or the reason why they're buying.
Yeah. Yeah, good question. Definitely I see commonalities. So my buyer is usually it's the tech executive. Um, they went to the right
Interesting.
schools. They
Yeah.
went to the right these big fancy schools. They got the big fancy jobs. They're maybe 10 years deep into their career, and they're smart enough to
Yeah.
kind of know, like, hey, I need to own this asset. Like, they're usually
Hmm.
frustrated and sick and tired of building, someone else's company. And so yeah, it's
Yeah.
usually that disenchanted tech executive that is looking to
Yeah.
transition from full-time corporate guy or gal to startup founder, and they're really great at doing their job at their company. But then, as far as like running a small SaaS company, they just have no idea, and that's really where I'm able to
Yep.
kind of bridge that gap and help them along that path.
Interesting, interesting. No, I do think that is a pretty good target buyer because they definitely have the capital, they have the skills, they probably have the risk appetite as well. So yeah, that makes a lot of sense. You're the number one buyer on Acquire. What are like the top top couple of tips, that you'd have for a first time seller on Acquire? How can he make his listing stand out? How can he, you know, interact best with buyers? Yeah, what would be your main tips over there?
Yeah, good question. So, if I was a first time seller on Acquire, I would take a look at okay, I would take a look at my branding. First and foremost, how does the outside of my house look,
Hmm.
right? Are there things I can do
Hmm.
to
Hmm.
quickly, simply, and easily, update the website, update the ebooks, update the branding? And so I think that, if you need
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
invest a little bit there and fix that up, that's a good place to start. Then I think it's just having an understanding of like, hey, here's how it works. You know, you do the listing, you talk to buyers, kind of the process overview. The team at Acquire is really great at that. They really have like kind of
Hmm.
unbelievable support. Honestly, I've been really happy with them.
Hmm.
And then, the other thing I would just tell them is like, hey, anytime you do have a buyer request access, just be quick. Be quick to respond. Be
Yeah.
friendly. Be
Yeah.
approachable. Push for that intro call. Get to know them. Answer their questions. Be open with them, like we were talking about. I think all those things go a long way. And from other buyers, every time I jump on a new call with a buyer, kind of to get the conversation going, I'll always be like, "Hey, so how's your experience been on Acquire?" I'm always curious, like from a buyer's perspective, how's it going? And that tells me,
Hmm.
hey, they're looking at all these other deals, they're just kicking the tires, kind of tells me where they're at on their journey. But many times, with that question has come like, oh yeah, it's hard to get a hold of any buyers. Everyone's weird, like no one's responsive,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
so I think if you're a sharp seller and you could be on top of it, be approachable, all those things, I think you'll go a long way. And if everything looks good, the other thing I would make sure, and this is to all the non-technical guys that are looking to sell, make sure your code base is solid. Make sure that,
Hmm. Hmm.
because as a non-technical founder, I've had certain deals in the past where I've used other dev shops that weren't so great. And there was this one time in particular, I went to sell a business and I really wanted this deal, and everything fell through last minute because they took a look at the code base and it wasn't
That
there.
sucks.
And that, I think
Yeah.
that's something that most non-technical SaaS founders are like, they have no idea about. Like I
No
did,
idea.
when you're
Yeah.
selling a business, code's got to be good, the branding's got to be good, and then just know all your numbers, have them nice and
Hmm.
neat. Get everything together in a nice little data room so that when you do have that right buyer for you, you're good to go, and you could push towards a
Yeah.
quick,
You're
clean,
right.
easy close.
No, makes sense. Makes sense. I'm curious, like, it sounds like you have a lot of the documentation, the deal room that's required right from the start. So, how long does due diligence usually take you?
It really depends on the buyer. It's
Hmm.
I like
Fair.
I like to I like to my deals are small and simple, and I don't try to pretend like they're not. And so I explain that to my buyer. Hey, this is a simple deal. What do you want to see? And I'll let them come at me with questions. And cool, I'll give them everything they need. Usually, they've already seen everything that is on that
Yeah. Yeah.
that checklist once we
Yeah.
are in the LOI stage and that due diligence stage, and we push for a 1 week close.
Hmm.
So I say, great. Well, I've got all my
Nice.
items.
That's really quick. Yeah.
And the other thing too that I like to do is I like to facilitate it for the buyer, and so I'll always have my attorney.
Hmm.
I think on Acquire they've got a great tool that can build an asset purchase agreement, but I just
Yeah.
have my attorney do it, and that's been what's worked for me. And
Hmm.
I'll knock out the agreement for the buying party, and then all they got to do, hey, everything is ready to go. I created our purchase agreement. It's got all the items that we talked about, and go ahead, take a look. Have your attorney check it out if you like. But everything's there, and if everything looks good, we'll be ready for signature.
I hope every seller watching is honestly taking notes. I think so many sellers like try to leave all of the small nuances or the tiny kinks for the end, right? Because then they're like,
Yeah,
oh, maybe by then it'll be too late for the buyer to back out, or they will have already be ready to buy the business. But I just
hmm,
really think that's the wrong approach. I think you gotta hash it all out before the LOI itself. Because otherwise you don't really have a deal. You have an illusion of a deal. You're not
yeah,
really being fully honest, and that buyer is gonna, he's gonna go deep into the business until he can figure out every single thing that could possibly go wrong. So yeah,
totally.
I think that's also again really really helpful advice. I Another thing that I find really interesting is not only have you sold 19 businesses, but you've seen 19 different buyers take over a
Hmm,
new acquisition. You've seen them run it and try to grow it.
hmm.
I'd love to understand from you, like, yeah, kind of what your experiences were there. Maybe, yeah, I'd love to see, like, yeah, what you saw worked really well for people taking over business. Yeah, maybe some tips, for first-time acquirers or, yeah, anybody looking to take over a business that they've acquired.
Yeah. I have had all kinds of experiences, and as far as passing off, the business to a new buyer, kind of how that's worked out for different people is as you would imagine, totally different for different people. I don't really, have an
Yeah,
engagement,
yeah,
for a long period of time with most of these buyers,
got
unless
it.
we maybe work something out where they would like that. I am open to that. But most of my deals have kind
Mm-hmm.
of been like, 90 days to, 4, 5, 6 months tops. And so after that, I don't really keep track. I'm not sure. But one common thing, as you can imagine, is the businesses that, the founder quits their day job and goes all in and is willing to and open to continuing to build partnerships and sell. Those are the ones that have been
Yeah, yeah.
extremely successful.
Hmm.
but the ones that
Hmm.
have continued maybe a little bit too long, and it's fine if you just acquire a business and you're transitioning out of a full-time gig to eventually get there, it's totally fine. But as you can imagine, the people that from day one are just all in, those have been much more successful. But really have seen everything from people honestly not doing a dang thing with the business. And
Yeah.
I'm not surprised because they didn't do anything, and it's like, I'm
Yeah.
always
Naturally.
careful. I'm always careful, like, hey, this is tough work, dude. Like, it
Hmm.
ain't easy.
Hmm.
It's not easy. It's why most people
Hmm.
don't do it. But if you're willing to work, the opportunity is completely there and it's totally real and it's totally doable. But yeah, really seeing,
Hmm.
everything from people not doing much to people doing really well and really enjoying it and even going on to then, flip that business to another buyer.
Literally recently saw a tweet like, I don't know, like a week ago where he was like, oh, like nobody can build a business to 5, 10K MRR and then sell it, it never happens. And then somebody
Mhm.
else quote retweeted that and like was like, I did it twice in the last year.
Yeah.
So I wonder
Yeah.
what you'd say to those people, that think like, oh, this is not possible, or it's not as easy as you're making it out to be.
Yeah. I've done a little bit of just kind of random consulting work. And different founders that want to get into micro-SaaS, or maybe they want to sell their micro-SaaS. And anyways, I was talking with a guy a couple weeks ago, and he's like, "Yeah, I belong to this business club, and I was told that no one wants to buy any businesses that are doing less than $1 million a year." And these guys they're not in SaaS. They don't, they're not in the same space. They probably have never sold a business themselves. And so yeah, I would just urge people, like, just like, don't trust everything that everyone says. You know, one
Yeah.
thing that I've learned is years ago I had a really great consultant who taught me a lot of really awesome things, but he
Hmm.
wasn't in the SaaS space. He was not in the SaaS space, and
Yeah.
he was in a totally different thing. And he gave me some wrong
Yeah.
information, which led me down the wrong path. And so I would just urge people, like, hey, go to people in
Hmm.
your space that have actually done the thing that you're looking to do. But yeah, certainly,
Hmm.
you know, people people want to buy businesses that are doing 10K in MRR. Like, that's a sweet spot actually. People love all day long. There's lots of buyers for those.
I'm curious, like, with the way the acquisition ecosystem, like, I think you're somebody who's seen it evolve from, selling a business pre-acquire to now selling a business on acquire for the last couple of years. You've seen how the ecosystem has changed. The number of buyers has increased, the number of businesses has increased.
Yeah.
AI has also made so many changes. Yeah, I'm curious where you think, this acquisition ecosystem is going, how big you think it can.
Yeah, I'm pretty bullish on Micro-SaaS, man. I think it's on the come up. I think more and more people are realizing, like we talked about, hey, I really need to own my own asset here. I need to be building my asset because that's real stability, to be able to own, the business that you're building, versus be able to get that call or email saying, like, hey, we've laid off hundreds of people or thousands or whatever, happens. And I think a lot of that is going on. I think with AI, it's going to drive more and more people to build these micro SaaS businesses. And I think it's super exciting. Um, I think it's a great time for people to take advantage of it. There's endless opportunities as far as different verticals, markets, niches to serve. And like you said, there's more and more buyers. And so there's more opportunity for these small businesses to be acquired, a few years down the line, or whenever, the business owner is getting tired and wants to cash out on the asset.
But would you say there's more opportunity for somebody in the selling side of things or in the buying side of things?
Uh yeah, I mean, gosh, I'm like seller guy, so I'm always thinking as a seller, but as a buyer, I mean, yeah, lots and lots of opportunities for both the buyer and the seller. I'd say probably
Hmm.
probably more. opportunity for, I don't know, that's a tough question. I think it's probably equal, honestly, just with more people getting familiar with micro-SaaS and learning that it's a thing through podcasts or wherever. And yeah, so I think looking in the future, I think there's going to be a lot of room for people to build profitable, useful, real micro SaaS businesses, and they'll be able to attract sticky, awesome customers with AI and all these great new. This is a new frontier. It's perfect time to take advantage
Yeah.
and get involved. Um, but it's just crazy how many people want to do it, but they won't do it. Like they won't do it. They're scared. They're scared. It's like, stop being scared, dude. It's they overcomplicate it. I've got a lot of friends of mine that we've talked, kind of casually, hey, here's what I've got going on, and it's always like, I want to do I dream of being a SaaS founder and I want to do it. And it's like, you just have to do it.
I really think it does come down to doing it. I think what often stops people is just the fear of failure. Because once you do it, once you start, then you can fail, right? Then you're like, oh, you built something, and then your partner asks you, oh, how's that thing going? You built it a month ago or 2 weeks ago, and they're afraid
Mm,
of saying like not much has happened, but I think that's normal. You have
yeah.
to get past that. You have to go through that a couple of times, before you get into the habit of like making things happen every single week. On that point, I'm curious because you're very often going back to that 0 to 1 phase, right? And I think a lot of people, when they're first starting out, they don't know how to allocate that time, how to sort of know where to focus. I'm curious if you have like a process for that, or a framework that you use, to allocate your time and your focus, especially in the early days.
Yeah, I'm a huge fan of virtual assistants. That which is another thing. Many of my buyers, they've never had a VA, they've never had an assistant, and so I can, help them hire and train someone and get them going. But I've always had a very small team of competent contractors. So they're not people that I'm on the hook to pay some big salary every month, and it's been really amazing that way. So if you surround yourself with all these really competent, great, world class contractors, attorneys, the developers, the designers. And if you have, one just solid virtual assistant that really values their job, you pay them $10 an hour. They're surprisingly loyal. They're surprisingly competent. And with tools these days, you don't need to be, physical in person. I've had just amazing experiences working with VAs. And so to answer your question, I would,
Yeah.
you know, I would look at your skill sets. Is that selling? Is it, whatever it is for the business, and focus on whatever you're good at. For the businesses I sell, I try to find founders that aren't afraid to get their hands dirty and go and sell the product. Those guys do the best. And so I would say, like, dude, 90%, everything's built. Go and sell it. Go talk to partners and customers and try to sell this thing. And then all the other stuff. So 90% you're focused on sales, and then 10%, you've got your VA. Once things get busy, hire another VA. I always fluctuate to working with 1 to 4 or 5 VAs, depending on what I've got going on. Um, and yeah, so all the little, the onboarding, the setting up of the accounts, the billing, all that stuff should be done by a VA, and you should be selling your new product that you just acquired.
To end of the episode, I'm going to be asking you some shorter questions, some quick fire questions, Feel free to
Yeah,
answer some of them, some of them might be like your favorite book or something like that. If nothing comes to mind, feel free to just like skip it.
okay,
No problem at all.
cool.
Awesome. So the first I have for you is I want to get a sense of some of your contrarian takes. So
Okay.
I'm curious if you think the SaaS market is a oversaturated space.
I don't think so. I don't think at all. I mean, my experience with SaaS competing against heavily funded big players is one thing I've learned is there's an endless amount of businesses that are looking for tools. Like it's endless. and there's lots of people talking. There's not that many people doing. And even if you're in a crowded space, you'd be surprised at how much these businesses don't care about your competitors. They're not following the headlines. They don't care how
True.
much capital they've
Yeah.
raised. They're just looking for a thing to make their lives easier. And so I think there's endless opportunities. I'm kind of on the opposite. I think there's endless opportunities, especially with AI. We don't even know the opportunities, but yeah, definitely not too crowded. Now's the moment.
So on that point, actually, do you think AI has made it easier to sort of build and sell a SaaS business, or has it sort of made like reduced the competition or the moat to building a business so much that SaaS might actually become irrelevant, obviously a couple of years down the line, where, any dentist, if they need a certain software, they can just get into Lovable and, build themselves a decent
Mhm.
enough tool with just natural language.
Yeah, I think who knows what the future holds, but I think we've got a nice kind of like 10-year period before anything like that could happen. I've, talking with more technical minds, I've noticed that's where the technical mind goes. Like, well, why couldn't they just build this? Why don't they just go, dude? They're busy drilling teeth if they're a dentist, and they're not technical. They don't think like you. It's like to them creating even like on AI, they wouldn't know how to. So I think the day maybe will come. I think we've got a good opportunity of like a 10-year period. This is my best guess before something like that is going to be a real thing.
I love it. I love it. And so being a non-technical founder yourself, having
Yeah.
sold 19 businesses so far, what would you say to those who are non-technical themselves, right? And think that they can't start or they don't know how to or that they will fail? Yeah, what would you say to them, to encourage them or try to get them on this path?
Yeah, I would say that if you're looking to build a really big business and you're non-technical, you need a technical co-founder. You need someone full-time technical co-founder to build that big thing. Now, if you're looking to have a lifestyle SaaS where you can replace your 200K a year, you could build it to a million ARR, you can do that as a non-technical founder as long as you have the right technical people around you. That's totally possible. And many people don't think that is possible, but it actually is. And so, again, depending on your goals, if you're looking to build a lifestyle business, don't worry about it. Be a solo founder, keep all your equity, bootstrap the heck out of it, and and you can do it as long as you've got a good tech team in your corner. But if you're looking to build a big business, find the right technical co-founder to kind of go all in on it with you.
I love it. I love it. No, I think that's pretty solid advice, honestly. Um, I'm curious if there's any typical business advice or startup advice that you highly disagree with.
Let's see. I'm just trying to. I first thing that comes to mind is, it takes capital. It just doesn't.
True,
It
true. It
takes
does not at all.
it takes desire and resourcefulness
Hmm.
and like a ton of tenacity. You need a product to sell and you need the willingness to go and sell it and you need to figure out how to do that. And that's literally it. People are totally overcomplicating it.
No, I love it. I really do think people overcomplicate things. I think it's human too. It's
Totally.
you almost have to train yourself to avoid that, to recognize when you are doing that. And yeah, it's definitely not easy. Let's say some of our viewers will be in college, or in some kind of a corporate role and looking to transition into this micro acquisition world. Maybe they want to build a business themselves, right, and sell it. Well, what would you say, like, what is the first actionable step, the most helpful that thing that they can do in this week, that will get them closer or working towards that goal?
Yeah. So you're talking about, hey, I'm a young person, either in college or right out of college, looking to do my first thing,
Yeah.
not looking to acquire, but rather to build. Is that kind of what you're asking?
Exactly. And like, what can they do this week, right? Like
Yeah.
tomorrow itself, what can they get started with?
Get a mentor. get a mentor right away. Like, get a mentor, man. Like, try to link up with someone that has done that, and multiple people that have done that, and try to align yourself with these people. And don't be afraid to invest in yourself as far as, sign up for a course, sign up for a consulting, like get coaching, like all that stuff is insanely valuable and can literally like make or break you and save you 10, 20 years of pain and pain for.
So we've spoken a lot about your advice for sellers. Do you have any quick advice that you'd say is for buyers that are on acquire, looking for maybe their first deal or maybe their 10th deal? Yeah, do you have any advice for them?
Yeah, I would do the same as my advice for a seller. Be easy to be approachable, be cool to work with, be
Mm.
professional, be ready to go. Understand that these sellers, they're trying to move quick. Like, especially if it's a small deal. Don't act like you're trying to I'm trying to lock up this $1 billion. It's not that. Just be ready to move quickly, be professional, be diligent, but don't overdo it. Understand that they're probably talking with a lot of other potential buyers. And if it's something that you're really interested in, take action on it and move forward with it. I've had plenty of people, miss out on deals that I was working with because they're trying to drag their feet or they weren't in a hurry or whatever the deal was. So if you're a serious buyer and you find a deal that fits your needs and all that good stuff, just be ready to go. Yeah.
I love it. I love it. So just to end this off, I have some rapid fire questions for you. Do you
Yeah.
prefer bootstrapped or VC?
Bootstrapped all day. That's kind of my world. That's the way that I think. I think there's a time and place for VC. I think VCs serve an awesome purpose. I think that should be utilized when complete product market has been found and you're really in the growth
Hmm. Yeah.
stage. You're not in the I'm figuring it out. I need to raise venture to support myself. I think it's great for growth capital, but I like bootstrapping. That's my world. I would go with bootstrapping.
Awesome. Would you say you prefer product-led growth or sales-led growth?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think if you do have a product led growth, that's phenomenal. I would just say both. I would say both. Both are so important.
I love it. They both really are. I don't think you can
Yeah,
effectively, grow a
yeah,
business to like a million ARR without having both of them.
right.
So the next one for you is, would you prefer a quick flip or to buy something and have to hold it forever?
Yeah, let's see. I mean, I'm like the quick flip guy. So for me, I lean towards the quick flip. I just love to do it,
Nice.
man. It's super fun.
Yeah,
I love to do it. But then there's also a time to just take a business and grow it and hold it long term. But I would say quick flip.
I love it. I love it. And what has been your best business purchase under $1,000?
Yeah, best business purchase, probably my iPad, man. Yeah, probably just my iPad. I'm like an iPad guy, and so yeah, iPad for days, and then also Trello. My $300 a year subscription to Trello is like awesome.
I love it. And just to end this off, is there any quote or, you know, any business saying any line, that you like living life by,
Nothing really. I mean, kind of my self motto is be relentless in my pursuit, and so
I
I'm
love it.
a big goals guy. Like if I can recommend one book, it's an old school book, kind of written by the legendary character of Goals. His name's Brian Tracy. So there's a book called Goals by Brian Tracy. I probably got, have
Hmm.
you read that one, Dev?
I have not. I have not.
Yeah, that's probably my favorite book, and I've gotten tons of value from that book. But yeah, be relentless in my pursuit. Be very focused, very clear, and just go after it.
Awesome. I love that. I think that's something applicable for everybody and can really help, honestly. I think that's a really good note to end the podcast on.
Cool.
Thank you so much for joining us, Stuart. This was a really interesting conversation. I hope the viewers in the audience got value from it, and are able to take back piece of advice that are not only help them, but actually actionable, right? Can make a difference to how they approach building their business or selling it.